My name is Elizabeth Groshek. I am a senior. I am an art major with an emphasis in graphic design. My hometown is Wittenberg, Wisconsin. I am rooted in a foundation of agricultural ancestry. Raised on a small dairy farm, bought and cultivated by my grandfather, then passed on to my father, I have witnessed firsthand the amount of time and labor this vocation demands. I call family farming a vocation, and that is more than just an occupation. It is a way of life. I have always been moved and inspired by the steadfastness of my father. His unquestioning faith and his ability to take on physical demands day in and day out have had a profound impact on the way I live my life. It is his image, captured unbeknownst in a moment of prayer, that stands at the center of the series. He had his eyes closed and his hands folded and his head bowed down, and he didn't even notice me in there. I set up my tripod and I took some pictures, and when I saw that contact sheet and I saw that image of my dad, I knew that there was something there, that there was something meaningful in that image. And then that's sort of where this series started. There was a lot of anxiety at first because I was not very familiar with the individuals, and I know not everyone was comfortable with the camera. But over time, and particularly a couple of times when my mom would join, she would lead the conversation, and it helped me be able to focus on the photography end. It helped my subjects relax a lot more. And so not only was I getting the story of their childhood, their farming history, their family history, I was also capturing their image. Yeah, that's my Uncle Dennis. He actually has 12 children. He is my father's brother, and they were from a family of 12, 10 of which were boys. And in his family, 7 are boys. One thing that I noticed when I was photographing him is the amount of physical strain put on these men's bodies. He could hardly walk around because he has such a bad knee, but it's truly remarkable that they still do what they do every day and continue to try to do what they do every day, even when their body can't necessarily keep up. I think this image was actually one of my first, but I remember driving up to the farm and his brother Ernie, I asked if I could take his picture and he said no. And that was my first experience asking someone. So of course right away I was just like, he said no, they're all gonna say no, no one's gonna want me here. And so I got really nervous, but he's like, go talk to Charlie. And so he directed me where Charlie was on the tractor. His farm is the oldest farm in the neighborhood. The deed dates to 1910, but they're certain that it's older. When I went to photograph, that was what he talked about the most, is walking around, and there's actually a date on the back window, but because of the focus you can't see it. He takes great pride in that. This is John Schrader, father of 5. His wife was diagnosed with MS shortly after their last child was born, and she eventually passed away. And thereafter, he had to raise the children while farming. He's also another example of a remarkably strong man. That's Father Herb, and I know him as our parish priest. I chose to include him in the series, even though technically he's not a farmer, is because here's a man who administered the faith to all of these farmers, and in a way is that connection. And he was born and raised in the same environment that we all were. So being farm raised and just having that important role, I thought was worthy of inclusion. Frank Fleece is quite a remarkable man. I mean, I knew some of his background, but I didn't know as much as I found out on the day that I photographed him. One thing about Frank is that he's always prided himself in his physical strength and abilities. In the community, he was the epitome of strength for many years, and my dad even talked about, Frank Fleece. He was a Marine, and obviously all of this physical activity and his years in service have taken a toll on his body. He talked a lot about how much pain he's in. With each of these men, to do what they've done for so long, they are very self-sustaining. and self-reliant. They aren't just farmers, they're mechanics, they're plumbers. It's a family farm. You can't afford to be calling people in all the time. My dad fixed a lot of his own machinery. And so the multiple talents that each of these individuals has is something we may not see in the future. During one of our student critiques, someone had mentioned that in each photo, it's difficult to see the subject's eyes or to make eye contact with any of them. Either there's glasses in the way, or a shadow from a hat, or they aren't looking directly at the viewer. I thought about this for a while. I think it's one of the reasons why the photos convey the message so strong, because if they were looking directly at the viewer, you wouldn't get this sense of them in their natural environment. It's almost as if you're looking at them in a moment in time, but at the same time using black and white film gives this sort of timeless effect. Aside from being aware of the elements, the environments worked with the subjects perfectly, so I didn't have to move them around a lot. My goal was to honor the men in the photographs, and I wanted the community response to reflect that, so I was nervous. But the response that I received was very rewarding. My senior art exhibit opening reception was December 5th, 2010. For the show, I invited pretty much everyone in my community, and I wasn't expecting an overwhelming response because it is a 2-hour distance. However, the response was remarkable. The number of people who came to support me was overwhelming. Different people from my community came up to me and expressed how they were moved by the series, particularly perhaps by one image or another. But even more so than my community's response was the next day after the opening reception, when I was receiving emails from people I didn't know and who weren't in attendance at my senior show, expressing their emotional response and how they could relate to the series. This series has meant a lot to me. I almost want to continue with more photographs. I feel like I focused on just one part of my community. When I started photographing, I photographed both young and old, men and women. And in the end, I chose to go with the older generation of men, likely because I would associate them with my father. I also find the women that these men are married to particularly remarkable as well. And actually, my mom once confided in me and said that the farm wives have to love the land as much as they love their husbands. If they don't, there's no sense in marrying a farmer. So I don't know if this will be the end.